Welcome everyone to our channel, Egypt Travel Expert, a channel made specially for travelers looking to find hidden gems and exotic destinations. If you are among those elite travelers, subscribe to our channel and we will help you to live the trip of your dreams. Our first exotic destination will be the city of Alamein, located at the northern coast of Egypt on the Mediterranean Sea, 55 miles from Alexandria. Not known by common tourists, however, it is quite famous among the Second World War enthusiasts. The beautiful sea resort in the winter is just a ghost town that has a dark and a sinister past, as the biggest battle during the Second World War outside Europe at its doors. A battle that considered by many historians the beginning of the end of the Third Reich and Adolf Hitler, which might explain why we have a war museum and 3 cemeteries where thousands of soldiers were buried. Alamein War started in 1942. However, in order to understand what happened in Egypt during the Second World War, we have to go back 2 years earlier when the Italians invaded Egypt in 1940. Hitler, who was very busy in Europe, gave the mission to invade Egypt to Mussolini, the dictator of Italy, who ordered General Graziani, the leader of the Italian forces in North Africa, to prepare a campaign to invade Egypt. In September 1940, 130,000 Italian soldiers equipped with over 500 tanks marched to Egypt border. British and Egyptian army were able to stop the Italian invasion only 100 kilometers away from the borders, and the Italians suffered a severe defeat as they lost all the soldiers in earlier campaign between wounded. In an early stage in the campaign, wounded, captured, or imprisoned. The Italian underestimated the British forces led by General Richard O'Connor. Italians were defeated in less than 1 week. The War of Alamein consists of 2 battles. The first Battle of Alamein started in July 1st, 1942. Unable to invade Britain, Hitler thought that if he was able to disconnect England from its allies, Britain will fall. That's why he invaded Egypt, so he can seize the Suez Canal and stop the supplies to the Britain coming through the Suez Canal, and seize the oil supply coming from Saudi Arabia. In order to guarantee the success of his campaign, Hitler sent the invincible and the undefeated general Rommel, Erwin Rommel, to lead the invasion. The impatient general started the campaign before the Germans take over the island of Malta, allowing the British Air Force in Malta bombing the supplies of the German, and it will make it impossible for the German to achieve any victory. Rommel was able to take over the city of Marsa Matruh in September 1942 and captured 7,000 British soldiers, and General O'Connor retreated to Alamein, where he established his defensive line. A narrow corridor between the Mediterranean Sea and Qattara Depression, which would make it impossible for the German tank to cross. Unimpressed with the 8th Army retreat, Winston Churchill replaced the General O'Connor with General Montgomery. During the First Battle of Alamein, over 13,000 British soldiers were lost, and 10,000 German soldiers were killed. The Second Battle of Alamein, late October in 1942, and early November, the strategic situation changed and the Germans were no longer attacking. Actually, the British led a big offense, and because of the heart complication of General Rommel, he had to return back to Germany, and General von Stumme took over. Later, von Stumme himself suffered a heart attack and he died, and he was replaced by General von Thoma, who by the time of the return of Rommel was captured by the British, and Rommel realized that he is in a very difficult situation. Against Hitler's instruction, Rommel retreated, and under continuous attack of the British Eighth Army and the bombing of the Americans. The reason that the Germans lost Alamein War: first, the continuous bombing of the British Air Force from the island of Malta. Second, the long supply line over 600 miles, which made it difficult for the German army to get ammunition and fuel. The Enigma code was decoded and made it easier for the British to hack all the German communication. During the Alamein War, the Germans lost 9,000 soldiers and 15,000 were wounded and over 30,000 prisoners, and the Allied only lost 5,000 soldiers and 15,000 wounded. The Alamein War was a very important battle, as losing the Battle of Alamein was the beginning of the end of the Third Reich. The Germans were unable to have any significant victory after this battle. The German generals lost faith in their leader. Rommel himself became part of a conspiracy to assassinate Adolf Hitler, and the Third Reich started to collapse from inside. Winning the Battle of Alamein gave a big boost to the Allies and made them confident in victory. Keeping Suez Canal meant that the supplies and help from all over the world will keep coming to the British to finish the mission and defeat Hitler. El Alamein is 55 miles away from Alexandria. The best way to visit the city of Alamein is to include it with your tour in Alexandria. You go and visit Alexandria, and then on your way back from Alexandria next day to Cairo, you can go to Alamein and visit the museum, the Italian and the German and the Commonwealth cemetery, and then have lunch and return back to Cairo before sunset. The Museum of Alamein was established in 1956 when the Egyptian government gave a piece of land to the Commonwealth in order to establish a museum to celebrate the memory of the Alamein War. The museum consists of 5 halls, and the first hall, or the reception hall, for general exhibit. Then we have 4 separate halls for each of the forces that fought in Alamein. The British hall, the German hall, the Italian and the Egyptian Army hall. And then we have the open-air museum outside the garden. The reception hall contains a maps which is showing the location of the city of Alamein and the position of each forces during the battle. Other halls show a very interesting collection of personal belongings of soldiers, weapons and information about the forces, and a beautiful diagram exhibition in a very interesting way. You will be allowed to use your camera to take photo for a small fee on your way that you can buy on your way to the museum. Before you start your tour, you can take photos inside the museum and also outside in the garden, where you can see very interesting collection of tanks, crushed airplane and guns. After you finish your tour in the museum, you can go to the Commonwealth cemetery, which contains the bodies of 7,200 soldiers, beside the names of 12,000 soldiers died during the battles of the Mediterranean and the Greek War. The German cemetery were 4,200 German soldiers buried, made of sandstone and granite, and it is distinguished by an obelisk located in the middle of the cemetery open court. The bones of the soldiers were all collected and buried together in 3 separate burials. Each contains about 1,500 corpses. The Italian cemetery contains 4,800 bodies of Italian soldiers who were killed in the different battles of the Second World War. In the one last place to see the cave of Rommel. It's a small cave located in the peninsula, in front of the coast of Marsa Matruh. Used to be a granary in the Roman era, and because the cave provided a good shelter against the British Air Force bombing, Rommel used it as a headquarters. The cave museum contains famous coat that Rommel was wearing during the war, also some personal belongings of the famous general donated by his family, including his handwritten notes. So do not forget to visit this museum on your way to Siwa Oasis. After Rommel was defeated in this battle, Rommel conspired against Hitler in a very famous operation known as Valkyrie, but unfortunately the bomb which was supposed to kill Hitler had little effect on the Führer, and he survived the assassination attempt. In the vague reports about the trial that Rommel had, Rommel was advised to kill himself as Rommel betrayal would create an embarrassing situation, as he was a very popular army leader, and the Germans might feel depressed if they realize that Rommel was actually trying to kill Hitler. Therefore, Rommel ended up committing suicide in order to avoid an embarrassing. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, as we are going to provide more videos about Egypt, temple, museums, and exotic hidden gems in the Egyptian land.